Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another book review, and today we are going to be taking a look and reviewing from 1992 by Stephen King, Gerald's Game. I have it here in softcover, and I also have it here in hardcover. Gerald's Game, and this is what I like to call the first installment in what I call his Battered Woman's trilogy. We have Gerald's Game, followed by Dolores Claiborne, followed by Rose Madder, that all seem to tackle the same subject matter. Gerald's Game was published 1992, and the paperback edition clocks in at 445 pages, and the hardcover edition clocks in a little shorter because the pages are bigger. Clocks in at 332 pages. I decided to reread this again for a couple of reasons. One, I had only ever read it once, and number two, this is going to be turning into a Netflix movie. So you will be able to watch Gerald's Game on Netflix, on your Netflix device. And so the premise of Gerald's Game is it's very simple premise. Jessie and her husband Gerald, Jessie and Gerald Burlingame, they go up to a cabin on a vacation, a weekend away or some time away. And Gerald likes to get a little freaky. It's a new game he had developed where he basically handcuffs Jessie to the bed. And they have, sort of like 50 Shades of Grayish stuff going on. Well, they'd been doing it for a little while, and Gerald thought Jessie liked it, and Jessie didn't really like it. She just kind of went along with it. Well, they go to this cabin in the woods. They're, no one really knows they're there. They go on a vacation, and he wants to play, and he starts with the handcuffs and gets her all that, and she decides, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't really want to do it to begin with, but I did it because, he wanted to do it, but she says no. And he thinks she's playing. He thinks it's part of the game. She's playing hard to get, and the more she insists, I don't want to do it, the more he gets into it and turned on. And finally, he keeps pressing his luck, and she gets mad. She gets pissed off, and she basically kicks him off the bed. One foot planted in his stomach, one foot planted in his balls. Boom, and she kicks him off the bed, and that triggers a heart attack. And Gerald dies. He gets kicked in the nuts, he gets kicked in the gut, he falls off the bed, he has a heart attack, he croaks. And now you have the story of Jessie handcuffed to the bed. Her husband is dead, they're in the middle of nowhere in a cabin, and now she has to get out. He dies in the first chapter, so the whole story is her, and she's handcuffed for about at least 24 hours. I think it was like a day and a half that this story takes place, that she's handcuffed to the bed. And during that time, she's alone. Her husband is dead on the floor. She's thinking, thoughts. She has no food. She has no water. She has a little bit of water that she can kind of get to. She can manipulate. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but it's basically her trapped on the bed, going through stuff in her mind. A lot of it is internal dialogue and internal stuff. She begins to hallucinate. Things happen in the cabin. You're not sure if things that she's seeing in the cabin are real, or if they're part of her hallucination, or if they're part of her repressed memories. As she's on the bed, thinking about what happened with Gerald and his death and his game, she flashes back to when she was a little kid, and what happened between her and her father. Starts dredging up memories of what happened between her and her dad when she was a little girl. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of the book. But when she was a little girl, she had an incident with her dad on the day of the solar eclipse. The same solar eclipse that we will see again in Dolores Claiborne. And that's how the two books are sort of tied together. And so the whole story is Jessie struggling with her past, struggling with her present, trying to figure out how the hell she's going to get out of her handcuffs. And let me tell you, when she finally does get out of the handcuffs, the scene and the description of her getting out of her handcuffs is so well done that it still makes me squeamish. I mean, the way she gets out of the handcuff is very disturbing. It's very what you have to do kind of thing. This is what you have to do because stuff is happening. She realizes that she is going to die if she does not get out of the handcuffs. There's a stray dog that kind of wanders into the cabin and sort of eats her husband, dying in this starving stray mutt dog that lives around the woods where her cabin is. Finally comes in, realizes she's handcuffed to the bed, and then decides, oh, Gerald is a good snack because I'm starving and there's some food. And, so there's a lot going on. But it's a mostly an internal sort of retrospective. You really get to see, there's only like 3 major characters in the book. There's Jessie, there's her husband, there's Jessie's father. She has a little family, but really the 3 main characters that make up the most of this book are Jessie, Gerald, and Jessie's father. And you really get to flesh them out, being that you're really just dealing with 3 people and 1 isolated incident, 2 isolated incidents, 3 people, and then her trapped in the bed and how she's going to get out, and then flashback into her day watching the solar eclipse. You can really flesh out the character. You really start to feel bad for Jessie. You really start to root for her because of all the stuff that she's gone through. You really want to root for her as she's going through her mental gymnastics. She has different sort of personalities. Not that she's multiple, but there's different parts of her personality that start talking to her. There's like the good wife who says that you should just fall in line and do what you're told. And then there's the other part of her that's telling her, no, you can't do that. All these people are bastards. You have to get out. And there's different voices in her head telling her what to do. And they're all different parts of her psyche and personality based on people she's known in her past. Her friend from college, her psychiatrist, her mom, all of this stuff. The book is very well written. I will say this. It does touch... It does touch on a lot of hot topic issues. So I guess maybe this is a trigger warning for some people. The book really talks about abuse as adults. Abuses as adults, obviously, what Gerald was trying to do. She had determined the reason she kicked him off because she was afraid he was going to rape her and that he wouldn't stop. That's what was going to happen. And that's what finally caused her to lash out. But also child abuse as well. And so, if that's something that sort of triggers things in people, and you want to read the book, just be forewarned and go into it knowing that there are some things that you are going to read in this book that are going to make you uncomfortable. Not necessarily the physical things of how she's going to get out, but a lot of the emotional, mental, and physical sexual abuse that goes on in the book and that's talked about in the book. There are some scenes in this book that made me downright uncomfortable. And that's a good thing because they're not things in the book that are supposed to make you feel comfortable. But at the end, Gerald's Game is an easy read. It's a good read. You really feel bad for Jessie. You really start to root for her. You really hope that she gets out and she gets everything sorted out. It's going to be very interesting to me to see how they're going to turn this into a movie because it is more or less her on a bed for about 36 hours hallucinating, going through flashbacks and memories and whatnot. She's mostly naked on the bed too. Then that's another thing. She's on the bed, she's down to her panties, and she's handcuffed. It's interesting to see how Netflix is going to handle all of the material. Although I will say, Dolores Claiborne dealt with some similar issues, and the movie for Dolores Claiborne, in my opinion, was really, really good and one of the better films based on Stephen King's work. So I'm really looking forward to the movie of Gerald's Game. I'm glad that it's going to be on Netflix where they can pretty much do what they want. They don't have to worry about ratings and things like that. So I am really looking forward to Gerald's Game. I would give this, and this is a departure for King. Up until this is when he really started to deal with things that maybe weren't supernatural, that things that were more grounded. When he started to deal with human monsters, things that people do to each other, evil things that people do to each other, instead of the boogeyman and ghosts and vampires and werewolves. This is when he started branching out. You got Gerald's Game, you got Dolores Claiborne, you got Rose Madder, and he starts going into a different realm of his writing. And for the most part, I think this is very successful. I think this is a really good book. I would highly recommend you pick it up. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I wouldn't say that it drags, because it really doesn't. It is a quick read. There are parts of the book that are going to make you supremely uncomfortable. And that's a good thing, because the subject matter is what it is. But I would highly recommend, picking up a copy of Gerald's Game, either on hardcover or paperback or on a digital device. Go down to your local library, cheap plug for libraries, and borrow it. But again, Stephen King still at the top of his game, still doing his thing, writing great characters, writing good scenarios, and just really, this one is really well fleshed out, because it's a small cast of characters, so you can really get into the head of each and every one of the people that is in this book. All right, and that is it for my review of Gerald's Game. I'm going to try and read Dolores Claiborne next, because I want to do Dolores Claiborne and I want to do Rose Madder and sort of compare them all, because I really think that trio of books is a loose trilogy based on the subject matter, and it deals with a lot of the similar issues, which is spousal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, things like that, battered women abuse, things of that nature. So, okay, guys, that's my review, 4 out of 5 on Gerald's Game. Really good book. I would go pick it up, give it a quick read, and until next time, I will see you later on.